Okay, so I said I'd come on here and make a video. I've been quiet the last couple of weeks. I've had a little bit of setback with one or two injuries and things, but nothing I won't overcome. But that's not the reason I'm making this video. The reason I'm making this video is I've had a chance, I suppose, to stand back and look at all this protest that have gone on over the last week or so. Now, personally, I sort of felt this coming to an extent when the price kept rising and rising of fuel, and whenever it was 2-3 weeks ago, whenever the government made their first intervention to drop the prices, but was it 20 cent for diesel and 15 or something for petrol. And I said to myself, that's not good. It's if you can only drop it by a measly 20 cent, you couldn't even bring it down to €2 and cap it at that. I said there's going to be, I felt there's going to be problems, and I'm glad that people did rise up against it. Because because of the Iran situation, everything it rose since. But the big thing, that I think everybody's aware of now, but a lot of people maybe weren't aware of before, is the enormous amount of tax that the government is taking on fuel. 65%. Like it's absolutely outrageous. Like VAT is 23%. And you would think that would be a fair amount to add on VAT to the price, which is similar to what they do in a lot of other European countries. We're completely out of whack with other European countries. So it's an absolute insane amount of tax, but yet they come out last night with another package, which I feel is really going to cause problems, to reduce by 10 cent, which will probably still keep it above €2 for diesel, and very little mention of the green diesel, which is affecting, all the truckers and the farmers, etc. Like the price of green diesel has almost doubled from what it was a couple of months ago. So imagine then having to pass on that cost to people. But that once was it mentioned that we take 65% of tax, and you know what? For a few months, we can control that and drop it down, to 23% or something like that. Not at once. Even though the government is running a massive surplus, they have the money to do it, but they just keep reverting to the Iran conflict, the Iran, the global price of oil. So, I feel it's a turning point. I think the country has had enough. I fully stand with the protesters. I know it's annoying, for people getting from A to B and doing their jobs, but it does affect everybody. It affects the ordinary person. Everybody has a car. Everybody has a lawnmower. Everybody heats their house. It affects everybody in every way. So I think it is hitting home, and to see the way the government has responded to this, I just think it's utterly shambolic. It's disgraceful to be so arrogant and not to address the taxation issue, the area you can control, not to address it at all, and just to keep blaming the global situation. It's just, and look, I have a few notes I wrote down here that I've kind of noted, over the last while. And we'd say, just take Micheál Martin, for instance, right, as Taoiseach, who's supposed to be the leader of this country. And actually, I watched Michael O'Leary do a video recently on, where he listed out all the different foreign visits, Micheál Martin, ridiculous visits to Angola and places as such over the last few months. Instead of running this country, he's off in other countries on diplomatic visits that, some of his staff could take care of. Out St. Patrick's Day, out, of course, with Trump, right? Now, this to me, after the insult that he received last year when he was brought in before St. Patrick's Day with Trump, and then Trump decided to bring in Conor McGregor on St. Patrick's Day. And yet, anybody with any sort of principle would say, well, good luck to you if you do that to me. But no, he goes over and he takes it again. You know, as if like we sit back and we just let ourselves take it, basically, you know, and sat in and you know, instead of making a stand and say, well, you know what, last year you decided to invite Conor McGregor instead of me, good luck to you this year, you know, and stand up for this country. But no. Trump referred to Catherine Connolly, our new president, as a male. Well, look, that's a mistake anybody could make. He couldn't correct him on it, though, you know. I wonder what it'd be like if he referred to, you know, if he said Mrs. Vance. I'd say he'd be very quickly corrected the other way around, wouldn't he? You know, so they've absolutely no backbone. It's a disgrace. Some of the agendas that's been pushed, the transgenderism agenda that's been pushed in schools in this country, you know, to the Enoch Burke situation, you know, a man who's standing up for his principles. A boy is either a boy and a girl is a girl, and he doesn't want to call somebody a they, and he's fully correct. But, oh no, we have to back that. We have to support transgenderism. Like, what have we become, you know? That's just a few things, you know, but they have a very short memory. Like, to come out and say, you can't shut down the country and all this, when 5 years ago, we couldn't go 2 kilometres from our house over a goddamn virus. You know, they shut down everything. They put people out of jobs, out of work. A lot of them businesses never got back into business at the time, you know. Forced people to take a vaccine that was rushed in to production, that normally a vaccine should take 10 years. This was rushed in a year. Forced healthy people who didn't need to take a vaccine because they were afraid of their life to take a vaccine, and then absolutely ostracize the people who didn't take a vaccine. You know, some people maybe lost their jobs because they didn't take a vaccine. You know, I stood up that time and I said, I'm not taking a vaccine. You know, I couldn't go into a pub. I couldn't go into a restaurant. I couldn't go anywhere because I stood up because I was healthy and I stood up for what I believed in. But is that mentioned? No. You know, so like the people are not being listened to in this country. There is no focus on what's going on in the country. The focus is external on everything else outside of Ireland. I believe the figure is around 250,000 PPS numbers, give or take, was given out last year in Ireland. But yet there was 30,000 children born in Ireland. So that will tell you the vast majority of the PPS numbers were foreign immigrants coming into the country. All the money that's been spent on IPAS centres, all the money that's been given to foreign wars that have nothing to do with us, you know? And the approach they took last week, like you're putting the Gardaí and the Defence Forces in an extremely difficult situation. And I know, just like any company, there's a lot of good people and bad people. There's a lot of good Gardaí and there are some bad apples as well, you know, who want to go on power trips. We saw that happen. And I know there's a lot of good Gardaí who do not want to be out there the same way they did not want to be out there during COVID and manning people and stopping them going from A to B at that time. But of course, that's their approach, the government. So look, I think it's actually ironic in one sense. It's happened over Easter as well, on the 110th anniversary of the Easter Rising. You know, like if we think back to what those men fought for in this country, what those men gave their lives for, men and women gave their lives for, to see, they'd turn in their graves to see what we've become today, you know. Like I remember watching an interview with Dan Breen in the late 60s, towards the end of his life, you know, when he was reflecting back on things and, you know, and what he thought of what Ireland had become. And at that time, he said, he was disillusioned really at that time at what it had become. He said he fought for freedom, he said, not democracy. And if you think it was bad that time, we don't even have democracy now. Never mind freedom. you know. And I remember they asked him a question about Michael Collins and what he thought of Michael Collins, you know, and you could see the tear in his eye. And he said, I love the man, he said. And he said, I'd gladly lay down my life for him. Is there anybody, I tell you, there is no TD up in that Dáil willing to give their life for this country. Not one. You know. And even at that time, actually, we had a great Taoiseach, and probably one of the best Taoiseachs this country has had, in Sean Lemass, who done a lot of good for this country. You know, and I mean, Paul Martin should take a serious look at himself as, you know, being a fellow Fianna Fáil follower in the path of Lemass, and absolutely, you know, be disgraced, and the same for Simon Harris and all the, you know, Simon Harris should look back at maybe the good Fine Gael leaders we might have had and say, like, how far removed he is from one of them. So I just a few points I just had to come out and say, like, because the money is there to do it. They could help people. They're running a surplus in this country. They're making a profit, but yet there's a housing crisis. Not alone can one person afford a house. A lot of couples can't afford to buy a house in this country together for years. There's a health crisis. There's a cost of living crisis. There's an infrastructure crisis. We're paying 65% tax to drive our car. But yet look at the state of the roads. Look at the traffic problems. There is no other alternative. There is an absolutely 1800s level of train service in this country. Dublin Airport is probably the only capital city in Europe that hasn't a train running out of it. It's when you analyse what's going on, it's abysmal. I hope to God that there is a vote of no confidence in this government this week, and I really hope it, because what will carry a vote of no confidence is that the backbenchers in Fine Gael and in Fianna Fáil will stand by their principles and say, this isn't right, this isn't the government I want to be part of, and hope that by standing by their principles, their local people will support that, and they'll say, fair play to you, we'll vote you in and we'll keep you in the job the next time, you know. But there needs to be something done. I just had to come out and talk about it, because it's the tipping point. It really is.